G'day, mate. Welcome to Friday Facts 287 with just bugs again and a mojo.
Hello.
So this
I
is...
don't have bugs.
Oh, well, that's up for debate. We're still waiting for a face cam to prove that.
Sure.
Sure, yeah. So this is a fairly short Friday Facts again. It does have one interesting tidbit in it, but the devs versus bug war, they're succeeding. They're down to...
except for that random spike of 2,000 crashes, over 2,000 crashes at one point.
The massive spike is the specific crash we talked about in the last Friday Facts. So, yeah, they broke something good.
Yes.
But they're now down to, what would you say, like 200 a day?
Something like that, yeah.
Which is pretty impressive, going
Actually,
by...
even less. 250 is half of that. Now you're probably down below 100.
Oh, 150, 100, somewhere there.
Yeah.
I think for the number of instances played to the number of crashes, they're doing really, really, really well. And I think that's the important thing. I think we could both agree that probably Satisfactory is less stable than Factorio at this point. And silence.
Yes.
No, it's just a game that's been...
there it goes.
Yeah. And there's a game that's taken off with all the Factorio players. Satisfactory's taken off, and we've all seen crashes. Yes. So then we've got EGX Resid.
In fact, if you look at the graph, was it 17, 18, 19? About with the 19th, you notice there's a sudden drop off in that crash.
Yeah, there's probably comes to a reason. Actually, does that only go? No, so the dates only go to the 17th.
Yeah, so 17th, that'll be midnight 17th, and then the peak, and then the next one's 18th, then 19th. So I guess it's already on a downward trend anyway.
Yeah. Where was the early access weekend? That was... What date was that?
That was the weekend before.
No, it was the 9th, 10th, and 11th. So in this section between the giant peak and the other peak.
Yeah. Where it's noticeably lower.
Yeah. So, yeah, one game has a big impact on the other game.
There is one correlation you can draw at least.
Yeah. So we've got the EGX Resid, which is a event we're just assuming being not from Europe at all and never heard of this thing. It's something like PAX. Oh, well, PAX is a dumb name as well, but let's not get into that.
Yeah.
It's a dumb name until it's used enough, and then it becomes fine. So the guys over at Woob, they have a booth in the South Vault where you might be able to play Factorio, but let's be honest, you've probably got it at home. More importantly, if you swing by, they might have some free swag, which is probably the most important reason to swing by and say hello. That, and probably thank them for stealing a few 1,000 hours of your life. And they're saying this is probably the only conference they'll exhibit this at this year, because it actually takes a lot of effort, and we were just talking about us attending conferences in our past.
Yeah,
and how much of a nightmare it is just for us to attend as a viewer, let alone setting up for one. So, yeah, they're saying this might be the only one they attend this year because they really want to put the effort into finishing 1.0, and I don't blame them. I would probably say get to 0.95 and then go to every conference you possibly can before you hit 1.0.
One thing to keep in mind is that we're only on 0.17.
Yes.
So after that is 18, 19, and then 0.2.
Yes. But
so in theory, there's still a long way to go to get to...
there is a long way to go. If they're going to keep incrementing like this, they can get to 18 and then get to 18, 15 and then just go, yep, we're now on 1.0.
To move it to push it to 1.0.
Yeah, so 1.0 is that point where you go, like, it's finished, game is finished, we're not adding any more features, what you get is what you get, and that's what they really say when they say 1.0.
Yeah, no, it's a tangent on the wonderful world of how people use version numbers.
Yeah, well, look, Factory Town, which I've had on the channel, has just gone in early access, and it went into early access at around about version 9, or 0.9. And I think it's up to 0.99 now. And he's actually running out of numbers to do incremental updates before he gets to version 1. And he's almost He has. He started off at like point 0.3, and I've played so many versions over the 12 months that all these updates have come, and all the incremental updates have come, and all the version numbers have gone up. And yeah, last time I looked, it was at 0.99C. All right, and it's just like he's getting to the point where he has to go to version 1 because he's just out of combinations of numbers. So yeah, whatever you decide your version numbering is, it's up to you. But yeah, 1.0 is that's it. There's no more, nothing new being added from now on. That's the finished game. Hope you guys enjoy. And then bug fixes, and then DLCs or expansions is really what comes with the next version. So then we go on to splitter belt compression. So
this is the bit we really care about. That's the only thing that's important in this FFF.
It is. So there were different kinds of splitter compression problems over the years, and we had to apply more and more fine-tuned tricks to keep it as good as possible for all the special cases. And me and Mojo, more Mojo than me, work in the special case scenarios with inserters tend to be faster when pointing one direction, and if they go one direction onto a belt, they're faster than going the other direction onto a belt. Because Factorio.
Do you know what's really funny about that?
What?
It's supposed to have been patched out of the game.
All those
inserters
issues
are not supposed to have different speed.
They still do,
combinations.
Don't they?
Yeah, they still do.
Yeah.
That's how that unloader that I use works, and the loader that I use works, or used to work before the bolt speed changed.
Yeah, it had to face one direction and one direction only, and then it was faster. If it faced the other direction, it wasn't quite fast enough. So yeah, they've been playing with inserters, and mainly splitters in this case, but they've been playing with all that stuff since 12. And in 16, they added the show transport lines gap, which I thought was a really, really good feature because you could see gaps in the belts. And at that point, a lot of people noticed that whenever you use a splitter, it actually adds a gap in your belts.
Yeah, whenever it merges something.
And this is when I started saying to people, like, you don't want to have a 16 by 16 or a 32 by 32 belt balancer, because it actually introduces a lot of gaps in your belts. You're actually slowing down your throughput, and you're no longer running at 13.3 items per second, you're running at 13. Because you've got so many extra gaps added to your belt. And they bring it up, they're like, no, it looks perfect.
15.
I'm like, what?
15.
Yeah, but this was for version 16, before we had the faster belts. Yeah.
Pedantry aside.
Yeah, so this was one of the many problems you had. And you could see when things merged across, they added this little gap. And in this situation, for example, the timing of incoming items allows the iron to move through the splitter, but in a way, it is slightly further from the previous item. The internal code is logical, but from the player's perspective, it really doesn't make sense that adding an extra item on the input can make the output a little less compressed. And you can see we're already compressed with the solid fuel coming in, but yeah, that doesn't make sense to me from a player's perspective. Maybe from code, yep, sure. They had ideas of how to fix it. One was having a tiny internal inventory that a splitter can hold onto, which means your splitters then become buffers, and then Zuri probably shoots you. And what they actually decided on was, rather than having the input be half a tile and the output be a half a tile, they moved the input to a 0.7 of a tile. Is that right?
Yeah, so they made a 0.7 of a tile, so there's an overlap. Yeah. What is that? 2.
Yeah.
So the idea is the entity, if it can't push in, it goes past it a little bit, and then it stops, and then it falls back in.
Yeah. So it shoves things in slightly overlapping, and then obviously the belt has to slow down, or the input for the solid fuel has to slow down slightly to accommodate that extra item. Which you can already see.
It still has to slow down to accommodate the item, but it doesn't push. That overlap means that it can push in at the right spot now.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to push in at the immediate point when it arrives.
Yeah. And it says here the only real change for players that splitters need 20% more items for the belt to be fully backed up, which is kind of insignificant. Now, you've already tested this.
Yeah, I've just been doing some cheeky tests.
And as far as we can tell, it seems that it just works as the image shows here. It doesn't look like you actually need 20% extra items to fully compress the belt.
I think I know why that is. It's because of the juddering. You need to compensate for that.
You really?
You need the extra items for the back pressure for it to work.
Okay.
That'll be what it is.
Okay. So it means all your furnaces just add an extra 20% on the end, and you're good to go.
They inherently will anyway, because it's always overproducing.
Yeah, it always does. So yeah, another small change. Great change. It means that in the past you could have a fully compressed belt that's not fully compressed after you've run through half a dozen splitters along your bus, if you've got full draw on it. But let's be honest, most bases don't have full draw on their bus. So problem solved.
Arguably, the other way of solving it was to not have a base full of balances.
Yeah,
which is actually you generally don't need to spam balances.
No.
And this was specifically why I always say don't do it.
Yeah. Some of the best bases I've toured, or the most highly optimized bases I've toured, have not a single balancer in the base, and in a lot of cases, they even avoid splitters. Splitters are to merge things together, but even then, if they can shove two belts and side load, they will.
You want to avoid balancing as much as possible.
Yeah. And then we got a last one, which is invalid usernames. So when you buy Factorio on Steam, you've got to make a Factorio account if you want to play multiplayer on the Factorio.com webpage. But back in December, one of our devs made a slight code edit that inadvertently made it possible to register an account from the in-game without checking whether the username is valid. In 2 months, we've gathered 19,000 registered accounts that don't conform to the intended restrictions. These things are mostly fine with arbitrary usernames, but one big problem is it's impossible for server owners to ban people with spaces in their usernames. On the flip side, if you ban everybody and go with a whitelist, they couldn't join either. Well, these people couldn't join. So most people register their account, intended no harm, but sadly we can't let arbitrary usernames stand, so they'll be asked to change their usernames on Factorio.com when they attempt to log in. My apologies to the users. 260 for your party, not the bees. Your mum lives in a tent, and apostrophe mark, and 1 equals 1. So
yeah, that's definitely not someone trying to throw arbitrary code into their database.
No. And there was a big discussion this morning on my Discord about, this shouldn't be allowed, and you can't have this in usernames and all that sort of stuff, and you could try and inject code. And I'm like, no, it's just somebody made a mistake, and because people could put in spaces, they did. It's the same as my username. It's JD-plays on Factorio. If I could put in a space instead, I would. But it didn't let me, so I put in a hyphen. Problem solved.
What's interesting is you can't wrap the name in quotes in the command line.
You can't wrap anything in quotes in the command line now, can you?
You'd think you get around the space by putting quotes around their name, but no, you can't.
Because I thought there was a change in 17 that you can't use quotes anymore because that interferes with the text, whatever it's called.
Yeah, the rich text.
Yeah, that one. It interferes with that. Same as you can't have spaces in the file names of anything in the Factorio code because that, again, interfered with the rich text.
I think that also interferes with cross-compatibility, cross-platform compatibility.
Maybe. So, yeah, the small things we get from watching far too many one developer stream far too much and watching code. Yeah, and reading far too much in the forum. So, I think that's it for this one.
That's basically it, yeah.
Yep, so thank you guys for watching. As always, do hope you've enjoyed this really quick Friday Facts summary, and we hope to see you guys next week. All right, bye.